Hello and welcome back to the Atlas Studios development vlog. I am Tom, the lead designer here. This week we'll be taking a quick look at how things are progressing for the game Project Grove, and then I'll talk through how we sometimes use Unreal Marketplace assets to save time whilst keeping a consistent art style. First up, the airship assets. For those of you who have played the demo, I'm sure you've noticed the airship feels a bit bare and barren and needs some more assets in there to fill out the space. Jinx has been working hard on making these assets and getting some more props into the airship. We will continue working on this until the airship feels appropriately lively and like a real space, and then we can move on to some other secondary assets. Some exciting new gameplay elements which are being worked on by Harry are the spiders. These will be in the upcoming Zone 4, the temple. We'll probably do a video in the future on how he made these, with behaviour trees and AI, but for now we just wanted to show the initial stages of interactive animals in the game. We've also been working on updating the puzzle designs for the previously mentioned Zone 4, the temple. This is a really exciting area because it's very sort of room based and can have some tighter puzzles. I'm really excited to get working on those in engine soon. In this section of the video, I'm going to talk through a few ways that we repurpose Unreal Marketplace assets for our own use and adapting them to our art style. This will vary from some simple texture changes to complete retexturing inside of Substance Painter, as well as remeshing and re-rigging inside of Maya. This is going to be a full tutorial per se. It's going to be more of a generalist overview of how we go about it and how we plan to do it and how we have done it, and some tips and tricks and doing it yourself. First up, for retexturing, we generally don't mind about the occlusion and roughness and the normal maps. Those can be edited through materials for their intensities and settings. Generally when we are redoing an asset, what we want to look at mainly is the base color. So to get this base color into something where you can edit it, all you need to do is right click, asset actions and export. So once you have that texture out, you'll be able to see it as a target file. I'm using Photoshop, but any sort of image editor will work. So now you have this texture file and you can do with it as you please. I've removed the black background, but you can do what you want. Depending on what filters you end up using, different setups work. It won't come on with a separate background, so you can just generally use the magic wand to just select that and delete the background and make your own black background. An important stage for us is just simplifying down PBR textures, because lots of the very high quality assets on the Epic Marketplace have are PBR or sort of realistic textures, and for a stylized game these will stand out. So the first thing we do is just add some smart filters in order to remove some of that detail and simplify slightly. For this particular asset, this was enough for us, just because it already had enough micro detail that we didn't want to add any more paint strokes or something, more heavy. And because this is just a quick job, this is all we need to do. The exact filter we used settings you can see here. This was just using one of Photoshop's base sort of features with some levels. I think we used the cutout setting, and this just simplified down those details into a few block colors that we could spread out across the texture. To add smart materials, all you need to do is go up to filter, filter gallery, and then you have all the materials here, all the smart filters here. Generally the ones I tried testing out is the artistic one. These do the most drastic changes, but there's some of the brushstroke ones can be nice as well, depending on the kind of texture you're trying to edit. If you do leave the black sections in the middles or on the outside of the texture, watch out, because some of these will smudge those sort of non-visible areas into the visible areas on your texture, and that can cause some issues. So make sure that you get rid of that background and any segments in the middle if you're using a more drastic or distorting texture. And that's really the first and easiest step. Something that we like to do, especially for the animals, is to make them a bit more magical. This is a magical forest, so the animals have some magic within them from consuming all the plants. For this it was very simple. All we wanted to do was add an emissive to the antlers and to the hooves. This is very easy using a black and white mask in a material in Unreal, but it was very nice to have this here so we could have a guide of where to put these texture files, and this was as easy just with a mouse painting some of this stuff on. I'm not an artist, so this is not beautiful or pretty in any way, but it does the job of giving it a bit of a interesting and unique flair. Now the second method, which is a level up in terms of what you have to do to rework these assets, is to do a full retexture using Substance Painter or some other similar 3D modeling painting software. To get assets out, it's the same as the texture. You just want to right click, asset actions and export to the file location you choose. I'm not going to do a full tutorial on how to use Substance Painter. There are much better tutorials out there on how to do that. But for example, for this whale, we took the original texture and completely reworked it to be a woodland whale made out of wood with grass and moss and all this sort of great stuff. And it was a completely new asset in terms of the style and what it was achieving in the game. So I'm not going to dwell long on this method, but if you do want to do it, if you have any questions about how to do it, make sure you leave those in the comments. If needed, we can do a long tutorial on retexturing assets inside of Substance Painter, if that's what you want. Last up, we have the full remodeling or repurposing of an asset by adding to the mesh itself. For this example, I'm going to be going through a rigged mesh with a skeleton, because this is a slightly more complex. If it's unrigged, you can follow the sort of first couple steps, but then it's much easier because you don't need to reskin or use the deforms from the original mesh in any way. So to start off, all you need to do is go to the assets itself, right click asset actions and export like we have with everything else so far, and then we'll want to open that up in Maya. So once you get the mesh imported, it looks something like this. If you want to see the bones more clear like we have here, you can press this button up here to toggle the bone visibility. Now the first thing we want to do is we want to take the current skinning weights of this mesh and move them over into a file that we can re-import later once we've added our own adjustments. If your mesh doesn't have a rig, if it's a static mesh, then you won't need to worry about this at all. Just add whatever you want to your mesh and re-export it out into Unreal like you normally would. So for this step, what we want to go is to deform and then export weights. These don't really matter. I've never had an issue with different skin clusters, but just output it to a file directory. As you can see, I've already exported mine to here, Manta weights. As you can see, I've already exported mine here to Manta weights. And so for this mesh, what we did is we added some feathers. So here you can see just some very simple modeling with a bunch of planes and some feather textures. So once you've done the changes you want, what you can do is go to your original mesh, go to skin, unbind skin. This will separate the mesh into a static mesh and the feathers into one thing. So now I'm going to select the feathers and the mesh and go modeling, mesh, combine. This will make it one mesh. This isn't absolutely necessary. You can take multiple meshes and skin them to one rig, but I find this is a more consistent method for me personally. Edit, delete all by type history. I find that gets rid of any groups and any issues. Now you want to select your skin, then your rig, and go back to your rigging tab and go skin, bind skin. I'm not going to go through the bind skin settings that I have, but these are what I use. I think this is generally what I find works the best. So now that skin is bound, we have some weights to re-import. So go to deform, import weights. It'll be skin cluster 1. So we're going to grab these weights that we exported, or this is the whale, so this is actually the wrong asset. So navigate to your correct weights, open them up, and apply. Now this is a pretty good approximation of the weights and where they should be, and it should make the animations for your asset work pretty well inside of Unreal. You can now just use File, Export All to export this asset and bring it back over into Unreal to set up your materials. And this is how we go about reusing and repurposing some store assets in order to save ourselves some time. There are some more drastic things you can do, like if your team isn't strong on animation or doesn't have a strong animator in the team, you can take rigs and animation sets that people have made and completely make your own meshes with them, rather than just retexturing or adding to the mesh, but completely remodeling the mesh. But then using the skinning data, rigging data, and animation data. This is something we haven't done yet, and it might be something we do in the future, but we'll see. Ideally, we'll be able to make all of these animals and meshes by hand, but as being a small indie dev team, that's just not possible in a lot of cases. I hope this has been helpful. If you do want to try out the demo for our game Project Grove, you can find the link in the description below. If you do enjoy it, make sure you wishlist it. It really does help us out. If you want to ask us anything directly, either put it in the comments down below or you can join our Discord. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Have a lovely rest of your day.